Welcome, friends. On the edge of a dangerous cliff, a heart-stopping moment was unfolding. A millionaire bride, dressed in her flowing white wedding gown, was desperately clinging to a tree branch, her cries echoing through the mountains. Below her, a deadly drop waited to swallow her whole. Just then a young farmer, his clothes torn and covered in dust, happened to pass by. Hearing her screams, he ran with all his strength. Without a second thought for his own safety, he lay flat on the rocky ground, stretching his hand toward her. Tears streamed down the bride's face as she cried out, "Please don't let me fall." The farmer's voice was steady, full of courage. "As long as I'm here, I will never let you go." His grip was firm, like a lifeline sent from heaven. The bride's fear slowly turned into hope, her trembling hands holding tightly to his. With every ounce of strength, the farmer pulled her up, fighting against the weight and the danger. Finally, he lifted her onto solid ground. She collapsed, shaking, then threw herself into his arms, her heart racing. In that moment, even the wind seemed to stop, as if nature itself was honoring his bravery. This was more than just a rescue. It was the beginning of a story written by fate, where two hearts met in the most impossible way. Dear friends, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And remember, this story comes from your very own channel, Soul of Kindness. Welcome, friends. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and red, when the young farmer heard a cry for help. His heart pounded as he ran toward the cliff, and there she was, a millionaire bride in her white gown, clinging helplessly to a broken tree root on the very edge of the abyss. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with terror. The rocks beneath her feet were slipping away, threatening to take her life in an instant. The farmer shouted, "Hold on, don't give up, I'm here." With sweat dripping from his brow, he stretched his hand toward her. For a moment their eyes met, his filled with determination, hers drowning in fear. "Please, I can't hold on much longer," she sobbed. "You're stronger than you think. Trust me," he replied, his voice steady, carrying a strange comfort. With a final desperate push, he grabbed her hand and pulled with all his might. The rocks gave way, dust filled the air, but he refused to let go. Inch by inch, he dragged her up until finally she fell safely into his arms. The bride clutched his chest, trembling, unable to speak. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she realized that a simple farmer had risked his life to save hers. And in that silence, only the beating of two hearts could be heard, hearts that destiny had just brought together. Dear friends, if this moment touched your soul, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And remember, this heartfelt story is brought to you by your channel, Soul of Kindness. Welcome, friends. The sound of screeching tires echoed across the mountainside. A black jeep had skidded dangerously close to the edge of the cliff. From inside, the millionaire bride stumbled out in panic, only to slip and end up clinging to a jagged branch, her body dangling over the deadly drop. Her scream pierced the silence. Dust and pebbles rained down into the endless abyss below. At that very moment, a young farmer carrying a bundle of firewood froze in shock. Without hesitation, he threw the wood aside and sprinted forward. His boots scraped against the rocks as he dropped flat on his stomach, stretching out his hand. "Don't look down, look at me. I won't let you fall," he shouted with all the strength in his heart. The bride's face was pale, her voice broken. Why are you risking your life for me? You don't even know me." The farmer's eyes burned with courage as he replied, "Because no life is worthless, not yours. Not anyone's." With veins straining and muscles trembling, he pulled her upward, fighting against gravity, against fear, against fate itself. The jeep's wheels slipped closer to the edge, adding to the chaos, but he refused to let go. Finally, with one last heave, he dragged her onto solid ground. She collapsed in his arms, her tears soaking into his torn shirt. The jeep behind them tumbled into the abyss with a deafening crash. But they were safe, alive because of his sacrifice. In that moment, the bride realized she had not just been saved, she had been given a second chance at life, and perhaps love. Dear friends, if this scene touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And remember, this story comes from your own channel, Soul of Kindness. Welcome, friends. The young farmer had just saved the millionaire bride from the edge of the cliff. She was safe, trembling in his arms, when suddenly the ground beneath him gave way. Loose rocks crumbled, and before he could move, the farmer slipped, sliding dangerously close to the abyss. The bride gasped in shock, her heart stopping. For a moment fear froze her, but then courage sparked within her. She lunged forward, grabbing his arm with all her strength. "Nope, I won't let you go. You saved me. Now it's my turn," she cried, her voice breaking. The farmer, hanging halfway over the cliff, shook his head. "It's too dangerous. Let me go before you get hurt." Tears streamed down her face as she tightened her grip. "I'd rather fall with you than live knowing I didn't try." With surprising strength, fueled by desperation, she pulled with all her might. The farmer struggled, pushing himself upward while she held on, refusing to give in. Their hands locked together, their eyes filled with fire and fear. Finally, with one last desperate pull, she dragged him up onto the ground. Both collapsed, gasping for breath, their hearts pounding in unison. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the farmer looked at her with astonishment, his voice barely a whisper. "You saved me." She held his hand tightly, tears of relief falling. "No, we saved each other." The wind carried their words across the cliffs, as if destiny itself was smiling upon them. Dear friends, if this scene touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And remember, this heartfelt story comes to you from your channel, Soul of Kindness.